Have you ever had a tenant that was so bad they made you wonder if being a landlord was even worth it anymore? Whether they're refusing to pay rent, causing chaos in your property, bad tenants can be a nightmare. But before you think about eviction, which is extremely difficult here in Seattle, what if there were a quicker, easier solution? Stick around because today I'm sharing 5 strategies that could save you time, money, and stress when dealing with troublesome tenants. Hey there, it's Realtor Emily Cressey. I'm also an investor, and I'm here to help you navigate one of the most frustrating parts of being a landlord, which is bad tenants. In my early days, I had a nightmare tenant situation that ended up in small claims court when I was just 23 years old. So trust me, I know the headaches of property management. And if you're managing rentals in the Seattle area, you're likely familiar with the city's extremely tenant-friendly, landlord-unfriendly laws, which can make these situations even trickier. Today, I'm going to be sharing 5 strategies to deal with bad tenants in Seattle without having to jump straight into eviction, which can be a slow, costly process. The first and most common issue landlords face is tenants who don't pay rent. If rent is late, don't assume that it's a one-time mistake. It's crucial to establish expectations and communicate clearly. You need to be on the phone with your tenant the first minute you see the late rent. You want to treat it like it's an emergency. You need to be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease. If they're trying to decide who to pay, it's going to be you, okay? Offer the carrot and the stick. You can be super nice on the phone, but as a property manager, but the owner, the attorney, the company, somebody else is the bad cop. You use that labeling so that you can separate yourself from the policies and maintain rapport with the tenant while still being very firm about what needs to happen and what's going to happen if they don't get in line and make their payment. So use that labeling, and you'll be sending out an official late notice from whoever the bad guy is, and it's a certified letter. You can send a regular mail and a certified letter knowing that they're getting it and warning them that this is happening, and you are always very aggressive about pursuing evictions. You, the good cop on the phone, are there to mediate a solution, and the bad cop is the one that's going to stick to the policy, be super aggressive about getting them out ASAP if they don't work something out with you immediately. The message needs to be, it is not okay to miss rent or be late on rent. You're not going to waive the late fees, right? Like maybe if they're nice and it's a one-time thing, blah, blah, blah. But the more nice you are, it's like you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to take advantage of it. So you talk to the tenant, you legitimately think they're having a temporary problem that's going to resolve. You might offer to work with them, get them on a payment plan, break the rent up into smaller installments. If they're having some sort of financial hardship, like they lost their job or there's a medical emergency or something like that. Sometimes the tenant might just need a little help getting back on their feet, and that solution can save you both time and money. You want to help them right the ship financially and get back on track ASAP and make sure that they are going to be paying going forward. The second problem is noisy or disruptive tenants. And in that case, even with screening and well-written leases that spell out the rules against being disruptive, you might still face issues if your tenant has like a party, a special event. I had one where a lot of people parked and there was a HOA and they parked all in the bad spots, right? So it happens and the neighbors don't appreciate it. So if a tenant is causing problems with neighbors, make sure your lease covers noise policies and other rules to make them be a respectful tenant. You may have to bring over a lease addendum and have them sign it if that's not in your lease, so it's very clear to them what needs to change in the future. So we try to leave these types of issues to the neighbors to work out between each other, but we did go so far as to talk to the tenant about how he could help fix the fencing or put in a stronger screen door, like a metal cage door, to contain the dogs better. And of course, if things escalate to the point where the police are involved, you may need to seek legal advice. But sometimes this is a people issue and not a property issue that needs to be resolved. So you're there to maintain the property, but you can't necessarily solve all of the problems between the people. Clear communication, setting expectations can prevent the problems from getting out of hand, but repeated lease violations of this kind can be grounds for eviction, especially if you think the tenant is being unreasonable or bothering like other tenants that you might have, if it's like a fourplex or something, because that damages your bottom line, not just the neighbors. Problem number 3 is consistent ongoing late payments. So what if your tenant pays rent, but it's always late? Maybe it's always on the 5th or the 8th or something, and it's bothering you, right? That's not when it's due. Maybe you're charging late fees every month and you're mailing notices every month, and it just keeps happening. It's a lot of administrative hassle for you. So sometimes with these problems, maybe it's a forgetful tenant. Maybe they're busy around the 1st of the month. So make sure that you offer automated payment solutions. I personally use Tenant to handle payments. They can pay by check or other means. They also do my screening and my leases for the properties that we manage ourselves. So that's a great resource for you, turbotenant.com. And another option is actually changing the day the rent is due, or breaking the rent into 2 payments each month and collecting every time the tenant gets paid. Basically, they get money in the account, you want it to come right back out and pay their rent. So find out, if this is a case of, all their money comes out on the 1st and goes to their alimony payment, they don't have enough money to pay the rent. If something like that is happening, then maybe billing them on their 2nd payday is going to be a better opportunity. Also, if your tenant is not willing to sign up for automatic payments when you start that lease, like, oh, we don't want to go on the auto debit plan because we don't know if we're going to have the cash in the bank on the 1st of the month, that's a good time to have this conversation. Although, if they've been there for a long time, situations change. But I will say it's a warning sign. It's a bit of a red flag if they're feeling very nervous about the auto payment plan. Most of us in this day and age have enough money in our checking account to pay our bills, and that's sort of a grown-up thing to do. So if they're not into it, just be warned. The bottom line here is to find out when the cash is getting deposited and have your day auto drafting it be as soon thereafter as possible, because that money is your money. It's spoken for. It's coming to you. You need to not let it linger and go to the candy store and get spent, right? So you can be flexible with due dates. You can be flexible with multiple payments per month, but be sure to set firm boundaries and enforce the late fees so that being lazy and disrespectful about rent payment does not become a habit. Okay, so now that we've discussed ways in which the tenants frequently get out of hand, let's talk about some alternatives to eviction that can help them head out of your property and move on their way to become someone else's problem. This is segment number 4. We're going to talk about non-renewal of the lease. So if you have a bad tenant, you're unable to negotiate a reliable ongoing solution with this problem tenant, you don't want to go through the drawn out eviction process. One option is simply not renewing the lease with them. However, warning, 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 Will Robinson, here in Seattle, this process is not as easy as it sounds. Surprise, yay for Seattle. Here in Seattle, Washington, you just cause to refuse a renewal of a lease, and you have to give the tenants 90 days notice if you're not going to renew. They have a track record of late payment, non-payment, disruptive activity. You can choose not to renew, and that can count as just cause. You just have to document it. You can't just empty them out for no reason. Wanting to sell, wanting to renovate, wanting to move yourself or the family member into the home instead are also reasons you can evict or not renew. But you need to have some kind of reason potentially, because again, Seattle does not make it easy to get rid of tenants. So you really need to be selective up front in choosing your tenants, and never assume that your tenants don't know the laws, because first thing you see when you Google these topics, Seattle has gone out of its way to create a lot of tenant handbooks and have tenant advocacy organizations to help them understand their rights. And here we are, segment number 5, raise the rents. If you raise the rents on the tenant, they may be willing to leave on their own because they don't want to pay a premium rent. So it's kind of another soft eviction thought. But whether they leave may depend on how much they like the unit and what other housing options they can find. So in Seattle, you're only allowed to raise the rent a maximum of 10% per year. They don't want it to be a way to force tenants out, and they don't want tenants to be displaced because of increasing rent costs. So if you displace tenants by doing more than that, you may be responsible for helping them locate new accommodations and paying to help them do that. So be careful what you wish for. So in conclusion, dealing with bad tenants in Seattle can be tough, but these strategies can help you avoid legal disputes. Only the attorneys win, right? And they'll protect your investment. I'm a Seattle real estate agent, and if you want to sell your property with the tenants still in it or after they've moved out, we can definitely help you. We also help landlords sell property directly to their tenants. If the tenant wants to buy it, that's also kind of a cool thing to be able to do. So if you're facing a tricky tenant situation and need more advice, feel free to reach out to me for non-legal advice, but just one girl's opinion here at HomeProAssociates.com. Let's work together and keep your property running smoothly. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.